Gobble gobble, what's up everybody and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host Alex Wilson. We're recording this the day before Thanksgiving, but we're posting it on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And I first just want to say in this episode, we are thankful for you, all of you Fireside Giant subscribers, listeners, any of you who follow us on any of our social medias, all that stuff. We are very thankful for you on this Thanksgiving, and we're thankful for football, and we'll be watching football on Thanksgiving. And we're thankful for our New York Giants, even though they're very bad. They're 3-8, and they're staring at a top 5 pick in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. And that's what we're going to be discussing in today's episode. We're going to be discussing the fact that the Giants lose this upcoming Sunday matchup with the New England Patriots. Their chances of landing a top 2 pick, they tumble. But if they lose this upcoming game, the chances of getting a top 2 pick and potentially landing one of those quarterbacks looks really good. So we're kind of just discuss the different scenarios that could play out here with this win or loss potentially against the New England Patriots, what it would mean for this team if they did win, if they did lose, and really the outlook for the rest of the season and the potential draft stock of the New York Giants for the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. But before we dive into all of that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? Hope you're going to have a nice Thanksgiving. Share with the people what you're doing for Thanksgiving, how thankful you are and all that stuff. And really, let's hear your take on this Giants game and whether or not they should win or lose.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we said gobble gobble. That was freaking hilarious. But guys, definitely have a great Thanksgiving. We appreciate all the love and all of the support, and obviously all the interactions and conversations we have in the comments. It means a lot to us that you've been able to join this community and we're able to provide some good content for you guys every day, and definitely survive being a Giants fan together, because I have to say, this is like an apocalypse. This is like the movie 2012. I feel like I'm surviving through this with you guys. And, end of the day, Giants going up against the Patriots, and Patriots are bad, and the Patriots have a good defense, but they are still very bad offensively. Mac Jones is basically a non-factor. He is terrible. He is awful. We'll see if they go with Bailey Zapp, also terrible. He is also awful. Like, they have a really bad quarterback situation going on right now. They have some okay players. Their offense is kind of like non-existent. The Giants could win this game, and if the Giants win this game, it's going to put our chances of a number 2 overall pick basically on the back burner. It's going to really put us in a spot where we're either taking the best player available or we're trading into the top 2 picks to land a quarterback. So, Anthony, I'll let you take it away in terms of probabilities, what this would mean for the Giants in terms of draft spot. I know a lot of people are like, don't care about the draft spot, just want to win. A lot of other people are like, we want to be in a good draft position so we can get a quarterback, or, have a within range to not give up in like a first round pick next year or to 2025 to get a quarterback. So I think there is reason on both sides. But I'm definitely interested to hear, your take and obviously the probabilities of the Giants after this situation unfolds on Sunday.
Yeah, before I give my take on what the Giants should do this upcoming Sunday, let's dive into the probabilities. This is according to ESPN Analytics. If the Patriots win, or if the Giants win, rather, their chances of earning a top 2 pick in the draft fall to 11%. If the Giants lose to the Patriots on Sunday, however, their chances of earning a top 2 pick rise all the way up to 47% chance of landing a top 2 pick. That's pretty huge. That's a huge difference. That's almost a 50-50 shot at landing a top 2 pick. And as we all know, the way that this draft is looking, it seems like Caleb Williams and Drake May are the undisputed pick 1 and pick 2 in this draft. Now, there's a lot of time that could change, absolutely. The combine, these bowl games, all this stuff, those things could change. But right now, it's looking like if the Giants want Caleb Williams or Drake May, they need a top 2 pick. Now, do they just land one organically through losing, or do they trade up for one? That's something that we will discuss. But it is just important to note how important this game is on Sunday between the Patriots and the Giants, because if the Patriots win this game, their chances of landing a top 2 pick fall to 9%. And if the Patriots lose, their chances of getting a top 2 pick are at 38%. So either team, it's kind of like the loser of this game is the one that ends up with the higher draft pick. It's one of those just crucial tank bowl matchups down the stretch of a season. We've seen it in the past, but this is one of those where if the Giants win or if they lose, it's going to have serious ramifications on their draft stock. And because the Patriots, you just mentioned that Mac Jones, massive question mark there. We don't even know if he's going to be starting this Sunday against the Giants. The Patriots are definitely looking at quarterbacks early in this upcoming draft, especially because they might have a new GM and new head coach in there. It's going to be a really interesting offseason for New England. So having them pick in front of the New York Giants, to many Giants fans, would be a nightmare scenario because it would likely mean that the Patriots are going to take whichever quarterback the Giants probably want to draft. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. One thing that I will bring up kind of anecdotally and just kind of recalling that this happened to the New York Jets years ago, right? 2021 NFL draft, the 2020 season, the Jets hadn't won a single game all the way up until week 15. Then they decided to beat the Rams and the Browns back to back, win 2 games in a row. And unfortunately, that is the reason that they drafted Zach Wilson. Had they not won either of those 2 games, they would have secured themselves the first overall pick and landed themselves Trevor Lawrence, who I think by all accounts is a great quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, was the most coveted prospect coming out of that draft. The Jets won those games. They ended up with Zach Wilson. That set their franchise back years and years. So there is an argument to both sides of this where no, you never want to see your team purposely lose. The Giants are not going to intentionally lose this game. They're going to battle. They're going to try to beat these Patriots. But there is something to be said about we've seen it happen in the past where a team loses a meaningless game or they win a meaningless game rather, and it ends up costing them in the long run in terms of their draft position and landing that quarterback. So, Alex, when you're hearing these probabilities, these odds and analytics here, how much stock do you put into that stuff? Do you think that this is like really the decisive matchup for the New York Giants, Giants versus Patriots? Is this the one that kind of determines the top of that draft order for the Giants? And, I do want to hear your take on it. Should the Giants win this game? Like, how are you feeling?
It's an impossible question, right? Because like as a Giants fan, of course, I want to win every game. But like the future of the franchise certainly does feel like it's hanging in the balance. Like this could end up becoming a situation where we can't get a new quarterback, or we have to stick with Daniel Jones. And I really right now I am kind of not even kind of I am on the boat of I would like to go in a different direction than Daniel Jones next year. Mainly because I feel like his salary cap hit in 2025 and 26 is unsustainable. If you want to build a competent team, we're going to need that money. We're going to need that 40, 50 million dollars. And a rookie quarterback, let's say, for example, you have a rookie quarterback making $10 million in 2025. You have Daniel Jones who, $22 million dead cap hit if they cut him after next season. You can spread that over 2 seasons. You have $11 million allocated to 25 and 26, and you have the rookie quarterback under contract who's making about $10 million, let's say. So you have $20 million right there. $20 million is what your allocations are for Daniel Jones's dead cap hit, the buyout, and then, of course, you have the rookie quarterback. So the margin between Daniel Jones and that buyout, or rather a rookie quarterback and that buyout, and then Daniel Jones keeping him on that contract, keeping him on that cap hit in 2025 is about $25 million in free salary space you have to spend. Now, fast forward 2026, that margin now becomes about $30 million, maybe even slightly more than that. So you tell me, what could you do with $25 million in 2025, and $35 million in 2026? Okay. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You have a rookie quarterback going into his second, third, fourth season, and now you have the money to go out and, that pays for Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? That pays for Tyreek Hill plus some. For $35 million, you can get Tyreek Hill and Bobby Okereke level player. You know what I mean? You have to think about the fact that, the cap is malleable. You can move money down the road, but it's not a sustainable strategy as we saw with Dave Gettleman. It catches up to you at some point, especially if your team is not good. You're going to have to end up eating dead money, letting guys go. It's not sustainable long-term, in my opinion. Having that cap health gives you the flexibility to build right now, to add players, to make moves at the trade deadline, to consume players and some salary. You can be a little bit more flexible in your decision-making. I think that in the best interest of the Giants, they move on from Daniel Jones after next year. They have a rookie quarterback in that window. You have 20, 30, almost $40 million coming your way in open available salary space as the alternative to moving on from Daniel Jones. And, you have a rookie passer who has a lot of upside that maybe fits your offense more efficiently. So you asked me, do I want the Giants to win? Yes. Do I think that in the best interest of this team is losing? Probably. And I think that's unfortunately like a harsh truth for us to come to the conclusion of. It's like, it sucks, but losing actually helps us long-term. As a fan, don't want to lose. You know what I mean? It's like one of those like internal battles that you just kind of have to face. And it's the problem with being a Giants fan right now. It's like we want to win so badly because we never get to. And then at the same time, we want to lose for a draft pick. And it's like, oh, like this sucks. I don't want to be in this. I just want to be competitive. I just want to have a chance at winning. Even if we had a chance at the wild card, I'd be like, let's go win games. I don't give a crap about the winning a playoff game last year made having a later draft pick so much better. You know what I mean? Making it to the postseason, beating the Vikings, having playoff football. I would trade it any single day to, I'd trade a high draft pick any single day to be a playoff team any day. But like the truth is a high draft pick right now going to give us a higher probability of getting to the playoffs more consistently? Maybe. No prospect is a guarantee. No prospect is for sure. And at that same breath, it's like, you're putting all your eggs in this basket that a new quarterback's going to help us get to that point. It's not. It could definitely be a bust. You could end up with a Sam Darnold or a Zach Wilson. You could end up with just not what you're looking for. That's the unfortunate reality of the Giants or any NFL team. But the truth is, you got to keep taking swings at the quarterback position until you find a superstar. That's the only way to win championships in this day and age. You got to keep taking chances, got to keep drafting quarterbacks, got to find a stud. If you don't find one, you cannot win in today's NFL with a bad quarterback or a mediocre quarterback. You need a Jalen Hurts. You need a Josh Allen. You need a Patrick Mahomes. You're not winning Super Bowls with Daniel Jones. You're not winning Super Bowls with Ryan Tannehill. You're not winning. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So unfortunately, you got to keep taking swings at players like that. And the Giants are in a spot where they could find a player of that magnitude. I want to win, but man, it's an internal conflict, and it really sucks because I hate to be in this position.
Yeah, one thing that I will say though about like we all want to win. Like I'm a Giants fan, I want to see the Giants win. I know that there are a lot of Giants fans that actively want this team to lose on Sunday, and I understand it, right? Because of all the points that you just made about drafting a quarterback and landing somebody who can be a superstar that can take you to the playoffs year in and year out. Listen, there are teams that have middling quarterbacks that make it to the postseason based on having a great team around him, and they don't win the Super Bowl. Like they don't make it all the way, right? Like the Titans, you just mentioned there, were a great example. They had the best running back in the NFL one season with Derrick Henry, who rushed for over 2,000 yards, which was an absurdity. But they had Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So yeah, they were a playoff team, but they weren't a team that anybody was scared of coming out of the AFC and hopefully winning a Super Bowl. They just weren't that team, and that's because they had Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, who's a good quarterback at his best, maybe even a top 10 to 15 quarterback, but he wasn't one of those guys that's a game changer that elevates his entire team and wins you Super Bowls. And so the New York Giants, could they have that game manager, that fringe top 10 to 15 quarterback in Daniel Jones? Potentially, but do you want to settle for that Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones ceiling and be a team that sneaks into the playoffs but doesn't go anywhere? Or do you want to swing for the fences and find that, Mahomes, that Hurts, that Burrow, that Allen, right? Any of those star quarterbacks. And I know a lot of those guys that I just mentioned, for example, were not top two picks. In fact, I think Joe Burrow was the only one out of all those guys that I just mentioned that was a top two overall draft pick. He was the first overall pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. But and that's the kind of the counterpoint that I want to move into is like the Giants need this generational superstar quarterback in order to become one of those perennial Super Bowl contenders, because that's what all of the Super Bowl contenders have, right? They all have these superstar quarterbacks because that's what you need. Even the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. But there's another example of a quarterback who was not a top two draft pick. Lamar Jackson was the last pick of the first round. Now, there was a whole lot going into that. I understand he fell in the draft. He shouldn't have, but he was never viewed as a top two pick. He was viewed as a top 10 at best. Patrick Mahomes was not a top two pick. He was the 10th overall pick. Josh Allen was the 8th overall pick. Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. So one argument that I will make, and this is kind of to temper expectations of Giants fans who want this team to lose to get that top two pick, a lot of quarterbacks picked in the top two don't pan out, and a lot of them that do pan out are picked well outside of the top two. And I think that's something that Giants fans kind of need to come to an understanding of is like, you see these prospects that look like sure things. Caleb Williams, in many ways, he looks like he could be generational. Drake May, to me, looks like a sure thing. I think that he's worth a top two pick, and that if the Giants can get him, they should absolutely trade up for him if they have to. Go get him, right? But realistically, history tells you that a lot of the best quarterbacks in the draft are not picked inside the top two. And when you look at some of those draft classes, like 2018, for example, wasn't there 5 quarterbacks drafted, I believe? The best quarterbacks drafted from that class were 8th overall Josh Allen and 32nd overall Lamar Jackson. The number 1 pick, Baker Mayfield, is a journeyman. The number 2 overall pick, Sam Darnold, is a bust and a backup. Josh Rosen isn't even in the league anymore. You look at these draft classes, and I just start to kind of ponder and debate and think, is it necessary? Is it necessary to tank for a quarterback and get the top two pick? And then, of course, the counter argument would be the Trevor Lawrence one that I just made with Zach Wilson, right? If the Jets tanked, they'd have Trevor Lawrence. They'd be playoff contenders, maybe even Super Bowl contenders with that roster. So it's a very nuanced and interesting conversation to have and kind of to debate, what should an NFL team do in this situation? The point that you made that I really like is that it sucks that the Giants are once again in this situation. I hate that we're even talking about this and debating this about the New York Giants and kind of have to sit here and think, should they win, should they lose? I wish that we were just a good football team, but the point that you made that's paramount is that the New York Giants won't become a good football team that's always in the Super Bowl contention and never looking at a top 10 pick until they get that quarterback position right. So I'm in the same boat as you. I think that the New York Giants do need to move on from Daniel Jones, swing for the fences, find that home run hit at the quarterback position, and not just get by and hope that this guy clicks in year 6 and everything goes right for him. They need to get the guy who just is the guy, right? Like that's your quarterback, that's your franchise quarterback. And for what it's worth, that 2004 NFL draft class, I think, would be the anomaly. You had 3 quarterbacks in the first round who panned out there with Ben Roethlisberger, Philip Rivers, and of course Eli Manning. That's the anomaly. Usually, it is 1 quarterback per draft class that hits, and that's something that Colin Cowherd has said on FS1. I've been watching a lot of him this week as he's been talking about these college quarterbacks. It's usually 1 guy in each draft class that really pans out, maybe 2 if you're lucky. But a lot of draft classes, let's look at the Kenny Pickett one, that one was just terrible. Sometimes you go into these classes and there's just no quarterbacks. This is a year where there are quarterbacks. And that's the other point that I want to make now, Alex. Some years there's no quarterbacks that come out that are worth taking, but you take them anyway because you need a quarterback. Other years you might not need a quarterback, but every quarterback is worth taking. This is one of those years where every quarterback is worth taking a chance on. Like Michael Penix Jr. has his red flags medically. Great player, could totally be a long-term starting quarterback. Same thing for Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Shadur Sanders, Jaden Daniels. Like there's just a slew of quarterback talent this year. And so I think that when you're sitting in this position where you maybe have your franchise quarterback, but you don't know for sure, it cannot hurt you to swing for the fences, because what happens if next year, now you need a quarterback, but next year's one of those years where there isn't a quarterback worth taking and you force it like a Kenny Pickett in the first round. And now the Steelers are feeling the pain and feeling the burn for taking Kenny Pickett in the first round, right? I think that this is one of those years where wherever the Giants are picking, whether they're trading up for the quarterback, whether they're sticking and picking and they take a quarterback, don't force it like a Mac Jones in a year where there's not a lot of good quarterbacks, right? Like the Patriots are experiencing. But this is one of those years where you probably need to draft a quarterback if you have any questions about your quarterback, because there is so much talent. Alex, how are you feeling about that? Kind of that notion that there are years where there's quarterbacks at plenty. And if you don't take advantage of that, you ultimately hurt yourself, right? Because you don't want to force a quarterback in a bad year. And honestly, you could argue that the Daniel Jones year was one of those years where those guys were all like fringe first round picks, and Daniel Jones being one of them. What do you think about that, where this is kind of one of those draft classes where the quarterback talent is a well and you have to take advantage of it before it dries up next season?
Here's an ice cold take. Somebody's going to draft Jaden Daniels and build an offense around him, and he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. He's 24 years old, a little bit older for a rookie. Someone is going to take Jaden Daniels. He gives me massive Lamar Jackson vibes in terms of very underappreciated, obviously very explosive with on his legs, very explosive playmaker. The arm talent, there are some concerns of inconsistency, but this guy is a Heisman winning player right now. He is playing out of his freaking mind. He is a winner. He's a competitor. Yes, a little bit older. Someone's going to draft him, build an offense around his qualities, and find themselves a really good freaking player. And I think that, it's not going to be the Giants, because I think he's a back of the first round talent right now in terms of where he's going to get drafted because of those concerns. But man, I just get in those massive Lamar Jackson vibes in terms of like people underestimating him, and he's going to be a really good NFL player because he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. However, with that being said, as you mentioned, a lot. Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, you rattled them off. There's a lot of talent in this quarterback class, and it's a really good problem to have if you're the Giants, because now you have a large sample size of players and a lot of different talents. None of these guys are the same, which is what I love about him. Michael Penix Jr. is a lefty. JJ McCarthy, a really explosive playmaker, but has his inconsistencies with the ball in his hands, throwing the ball at least. Caleb Williams, can he compete against against really good defenses? Drake May, like, is he gonna be able to, survive at the next level? Can he, improve? I think he can. You definitely think he can. Bo Nix, from out of Oregon, like a really freaking good player. Like, there's a lot of good players. None of them are carbon copies of one another. They all have different attributes, all have different strengths. And the Giants, fortunately, are in a position where they can say to themselves, we have another year. We have our coaching staff in place. We like what we have. Let's go get the player that's going to fit what we have right now perfectly. A guy that's going to operate our offense at a high level, a guy that can complement Saquon Barkley. I imagine they're going to keep him on the franchise tag again. A guy that can maximize our quarterback room, a guy that can survive with a spotty offensive line, someone that can maneuver, get out of the pocket, do some stuff on the run, make things happen when it breaks down, because that's an issue that the Giants cannot draft a pure pocket passer. They are going to freaking make a mistake if they do that, because the Giants need someone who can survive off script. If they do not get someone like that, we're going to be right back here wondering why the hell our quarterback cannot throw the ball. They need someone that can get it done, because good offensive lines are hard to come by these days. The Giants have proved they cannot build one for 10 years straight. So I feel as though right now we need someone who can do stuff when the offensive line does break down. That should be a pinnacle, a priority for this coaching staff and this front office. So, as you said, a lot of quarterback talent. This is the time when you take one. You don't wait for a bad quarterback class. You take one when there's 6 quarterbacks going in the first round, because you have a lot of sample size. You have different styles, different qualities. One of them is going to fit what you like. One of them is going to do a really great job interviewing with you. One of them is going to be within your range. And the Giants, if they pass up on the opportunity, it's a lot easier to hit on a quarterback when there's 6 or 7 good ones. It's a lot harder to hit on a quarterback when there's 1 or 2 good ones. Take the chance when there's 6 or 7. Do what you have to do now to prepare for the future. And that $56 million cap hit in 2026 from Daniel Jones definitely does not scream to me like a winning strategy.
Yeah, and I agree with that point that you made, and that's really the point that I was making. Like, we're in total agreement there, and I love that. Like, when there are a bunch of quarterbacks to take from, that's when you take one. See, like, the Giants don't necessarily need a top 2 pick to get a quarterback this year, because there is so much quarterback talent. But next year, I've looked at it. There's not a lot of quarterbacks projected to be first round talents next year. That's when you will need a top 2 pick, and you're going to reach on a quarterback if there's only one good one in the draft class. You're going to need the top 10 or the top 2 pick. And if there isn't a top 2 worthy pick in the draft, you're going to take some middling talent at the quarterback position next year. So this is the year. Like, it reminds me of 2020 when Joe Burrow went first overall. Then 5th overall, you had Tua Tagovailoa. 6th overall, you had Justin Herbert. And then in the second round, you had Jalen Hurts. That was a year where there was just so much quarterback talent, and all those teams that took advantage actually hit. It's very rare that you see that happen, that every team that took a quarterback early in that draft hit on that quarterback. Super freaking rare. But those are really great talents that came out that year. That's not to say that this year it's going to be the same thing. But then you look at the following year, like 2021, and you look at the quarterbacks in that draft class. You had Trevor Lawrence first overall. That's who everybody wanted. But then you had Zach Wilson at 2. That was a, debatable pick there because of playing at BYU and everything. Justin Fields at 11, future remains to be seen for him. But you look at like this past year, like 2020, a couple of years ago. I mean, that wasn't a quarterback draft class. There was not a lot of quarterback talent, but teams forced it in the first round, like Kenny Pickett to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then you look at some of the guys that went after him. You've got like Jermaine Johnson, great pass rusher for the Jets, Tyler Linderbaum, center for the Ravens, but they forced themselves to take a quarterback because they didn't have one. And that's the thing with the New York Giants, and that's kind of the situation they find themselves in. It's a quarterback heavy draft class. You have to take advantage, in my opinion. And that's not even to say that, Daniel Jones is done and you can't roll with him. You can still roll with Daniel Jones next year. Let the rookie sit. Like, there's so many options here. If Daniel Jones balls out and turns into a top 3 quarterback in the NFL next season, you trade the rookie. You probably still get a first round pick in return for him the following season. So I think that there's many different avenues to success here, but at the end of the day, the more I study it, recent draft classes, previous draft classes, this upcoming draft class, when there is so much quarterback talent, history tells you you have to take advantage and you have to swing for the fences. You have to at least take one of those quarterbacks and hope that they pan out. They won't always pan out, absolutely not. But in a quarterback heavy draft class, you just have to take advantage and take a chance on at least one of those talents. I like that you mentioned the Jaden Daniels thing. I think that's a really interesting situation, because if the New York Giants are picking, let's say, 8th in this draft, like they really fall, they win like 2 games down the stretch, they're picking 8th, and everybody's looking at Jaden Daniels as a late first round pick, that's when you take him at 8. Like, you reach on him. It's never a reach if you land a franchise quarterback. If you land a franchise quarterback, it cannot be considered a reach. It's considered the ultimate steal. So it's a quarterback prospect. So you got to take your chances here and roll the dice if you're the Giants. And I think it's going to be really, really fun to keep talking about these players. For what it's worth, there's a lot of wide receivers in this draft class that could make Daniel Jones or any quarterback a better player. I mean, I'm getting really excited over some of these talents. Keon Coleman out of FSU looks like a clone of Plaxico Burress. It's crazy. And then you've got guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., who looks like AJ Green in the flesh. And then you've got guys like Romo Dunes, who could easily be your Michael Pittman. Like, this draft class is exciting. There's a lot of talent. So I don't want to just talk about these quarterbacks and say, like, if the Giants don't draft a quarterback, I'm going to be in a depression. There's a lot of great talents in this upcoming draft class, and it's just going to be really exciting to sit here, continue to discuss the different talents, and look ahead to this draft. But right now, this upcoming matchup with the New England Patriots, it's going to be an interesting one. It could be one of those situations where the Jets kind of missed out on Trevor Lawrence because they won a game. It could be one of those situations for the New York Giants, absolutely, but it also could be one of those situations where they moved down a little bit in the draft class. They end up getting the better quarterback like in 2017. You needed a top 2 pick to get Mitchell Trubisky. He went second overall, bust. 10th overall pick was Patrick Mahomes. It happens. So you really don't know. Nothing's for certain in this league, that's for sure. But like I said, it's going to be really, really intriguing to see which storyline unfolds from that upcoming game against the New England Patriots. And of course, we're going to update you on the Giants draft order after that game right here on Fireside Giants. Again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope you have a great one. Spend some time with family or friends, or at least eat some good food and just have a good time. And again, we're thankful for all of you who tune into Fireside Giants on the daily. So without further ado, make sure to like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Giants. Gobble, gobble.